Do you think that this is perhaps because our age tries to tear down our idols, and we bring people up even in popular culture, even in entertainment and politics, and then we love seeing them being torn down? Or is it that Lincoln is so imbued in our culture that he's our next door neighbor, he's our friend? So we poke fun like we do our friends.
Well, I think there's a lot of truth to both of those aspects, Dan. Lincoln with the feet of clay, is in all his quirkiness and his sexuality and all the rest are the kinds of things that our culture is the way our culture analyzes people nowadays. Looking beneath the surface, 24-hour news cycles, you have to fill books, you have to fill airtime, you have to fill magazines, you have to sell magazines. To sell magazines, you need an outrageous message, you need something that you put on the cover that will draw somebody's attention. So there is that aspect. Lincoln is analyzed in a way that he certainly never was heretofore. But it's true, most of the statuary in the more recent period is Lincoln sitting on the park bench. Started with Gutzon Borglum in Newark in 1911, I believe it was, 1913, something like that. But if you go to Springfield, you'll see Lincoln sitting on a park bench there in the square across from the presidential library. You see Lincoln brought down to earth until he is one of the neighbors.
Well, I don't know if that's a bad thing or not. I mean, you see this, it's hard to say where the next, you say 2009 and beyond, Lincoln the Immortal. It's hard to look in the future and say where you think Lincoln is going to go. Do you have any idea on that?
Yeah, I think it'll be more of the same. I think it'll be more outrageous. Once you get Lincoln off kilter by 5 degrees, then the next guy has to take him off kilter by 10 degrees. And then 15 degrees, because you have to increasingly make a new point or make your new mark. And I think that's where it's headed. That's my view.
Wayne in Ottawa, Ontario, asked the question. Thank you, Wayne, for this question. The 1861 issue with Lincoln's picture, the only example of U.S. currency with a living person on the bill?
No, Congress didn't pass a law precluding showing a living person on U.S. stamps or U.S. coins or U.S. Treasury notes or bonds until after the Civil War, when a gentleman who worked at the Treasury Department got his picture on it, and he was not a national figure. But Salmon Chase was on the $1 bill. I would have to. My mind is going blank here, but several of the leaders were on the bonds and paper money at the time. It wasn't. See, paper money was new to the United States. We hadn't had any experience with it. The first Treasury notes that were issued during the War of 1812, and they only circulated to a very limited extent. Mostly, they went to a banker. Banker stuck it in a vault, and when it was time to redeem it, he redeemed it at the Treasury. The first circulating paper money was in the Civil War, was a part of the financing of the Civil War. So we didn't have a history of creating those kinds of obligations. And of course, at that time, it was common for other countries who did issue paper money to put their national leaders on their paper money, and we just followed along.
Mm-hmm. And then we got away from that. Now, you say that this book is slanted toward the Civil War sesquicentennial. Thank you, Tom. How is that? What is the slant of this book toward the sesquicentennial?
I don't know if I said that, but if
I thought I took it from somewhere in here.
If I did,
maybe a good publicist who said that.
Maybe threw me a curve here. I'll say though that my experience of the Civil War sesquicentennial was wonderful. There were new stamps periodically. I was a stamp collector at the time. There were all kinds of historical references in magazines at the time. It was a time of great celebration. I don't notice that the Civil War bicentennial that's going on now, outside of certain things like the 150th anniversary of, I'm sorry, the 150th anniversary of the Gettysburg battlefield, the battle at Gettysburg last month. It was a big celebration. I got invited to do a book signing there by two different entities, and I couldn't get a room, and they couldn't get me a room, and I guess they didn't want me sleeping on their floor, so I didn't go. But that's how crowded it was. And this was back in January, and I couldn't get a room there, so I didn't go. But I did watch it on C-SPAN.
Throughout the book, which I was showing you before, there are some daily entries, not every day of each year, but numbers of entries. Here, I see, I just happened to open up to August 10th of 1909, and you write, a measure of the popularity of the new Abraham Lincoln portrait cent is the public's thirst for the coin. The initial supply of the popular cents, allegedly 25 million coins, would be reported depleted only 8 days after their first public release.
Yeah, there's great newspaper accounts in various cities, New York and probably Chicago and elsewhere. There was a great buildup to the release of the Lincoln cent in 1909. Of course, it was the first of our coins that had a person on it. It was the first circulating coin with a real person on it, not instead of an image of liberty or an eagle or a device, a patriotic device such as that. And it was authorized by Congress, and they had a lot of trouble with Brenner, frankly, in his design. He created a design that Dan showed earlier on a plaque there in 1907. He was a commercial artist, and he was looking for a product that he could sell, and he was very perceptive. He started in 1907 to get a head start on it, and he created a very nice profile image that's on that plaque. That is not, however, the design that's on the Lincoln cent, although other places you may read that it is. The reason that you read that it is that that plaque was produced in great numbers in a variety of sizes, and it's been hyped, and it's been oversold as the model for the Lincoln cent. Brenner also created a second profile that's less severe. Lincoln's coat is open. His head is turned ever so slightly, so you can see the beginning of his left eyebrow, and it's a much less severe profile portrait that he also created in 1908 and copyrighted. That's the design that he adapted for the cent, and I tell the story in my book, and several other people have hit upon the same concept. However, the other portrait that Brenner created for a medal and a plaque was not produced in great variety because the U.S. Treasury Department said, "Hey, quit selling those medals. If we're going to use your image of Lincoln on the cent, you gotta cease and desist." So he didn't want to blow the commission, and he quit selling the plaque. And those plaques are rare. I have several of those. I have lots of the rectangular plaque. I have three of the round plaques in various sizes. So
those are reproduced. The Tribune Company here reproduced one in small, as you just saw. The larger one, of course, was the plaque we usually see that is more collectible. Those usually go somewhere in the area of 3,500, 3,800, I'd say.
That's true.
Is about where they are.
Right.
The smaller ones certainly in the low hundreds of that.
You often find the large ones mounted on green marble.
And black marble is what I think Brenner himself began with. It was a black one, and the only time I've ever seen those that really are his versus the ones that he let the, I forgot the company now, so that's out of my mind.
S. Klaber.
The Klaber Company, who did most of them that we've seen.
Right. That's very possible. I've got an article coming up in the November issue of the Numismatist, which is the monthly magazine of the American Numismatic Association, and it will be the 150th anniversary of the Gettysburg Address, and I show 3 Brenner Gettysburg Address plaques, one of which is only one known, the other one is only 4 known, and the third one, nobody knows it. It's just the image that I picked out of a brochure that the company circulated at the time. And those plaques were originally mounted on black and white marble. So it's very possible that that was the original intent.
I just want to show another plaque in here. I just showed the Brenner one. This one, which is one of my truly favorite pieces in this book, it's just a gorgeous plaque. Is that still available?
I believe it still is available. The company behind that was started by the original editor of Coin World and his partner, Signature Art Metals, and I believe Joel Iskowitz did the design based on the Cooper Union
Gorgeous
photograph and based on his conception of the Cooper Union milieu, and it's probably the outstanding commercial plaque of the Lincoln Bicentennial.
Yeah, I have to agree
I
with you.
absolutely like it.
Before I get off it, then I want to go back to what we were talking about, the coins and pennies. What were your criterion for those daily entries that we saw in both books?
It had to interest me. It had to either speak to numismatic aspects of Lincoln, or it had to speak to the development of his image. You know, the days that he got photographed, or the periodicals that had his image when they came out, or when they had discussions about using his image on the Treasury notes. And Sam and Chase said, you need to get over there and get a picture taken. And I've got a photographer set up, but Lincoln didn't show up. And they wound up using a picture that was taken in Springfield before he left.
And of course, who was going to ever forget the bobbleheads that have come up? And I know that the Abraham Lincoln Museum store stopped showing the Booth bobblehead.
Oh,
They had it in there, and
Yes.
then they were forced to get it out of there. Why they weren't forced to get this out of there, I don't know.
My
So-
grandkids love those. Those are among
That's why they weren't forced to.
those are among their favorite Lincoln depictions, absolutely.